Dear friends, in this section, we will talk about China's accession to the WTO and the trade policy revolution. Firstly, we need to think about why did China join the WTO? As for this question, Accession, Director of the Trade and the Environment Division of the World Trade Organization, had the answer. Let's watch a video.
As many people know, China has a very long history, one of the longest histories of civilizations today, and a history that is unbroken. So I believe there's a lot of pride as well amongst Chinese people to come back to a position in the world that China has had on many occasions in the past. So I think this drives a lot of the willingness to sacrifice, to make the hard work to get to a new position in the world. But there are also very personal reasons, I believe, when you speak to people, and these are just normal people. Everybody wants to have a better life. So to have that better life, they need to have a country that can actually develop, that can actually grow, provide jobs, provide education, provide health, provide housing. So these are very natural human desires. And so it's a combination of both the more country vision and the more personal vision of individual people to want to have a better future. If you look at all of human society, it has been about creating more interdependence between societies around the world. It's almost a trend that is unstoppable. But what we need to also recognize is that globalization brings challenges, it brings uncertainties for people, and how can we best help them is something that we look to governments to try to do as much as they can to deal with the challenges of globalization. I think international organizations will always have a significant role to play, and be that whether you're talking about WTO or either UN organizations or any other type of international organization. The reason is that our societies today are much more independent than they were before. And there's a need for organizations to help countries deal with that interdependence and also frictions. Because when you are closer together, there will also be occasions where there are frictions. So international organizations are there, like the WTO, to respond to this. And in international relations, a lot of this is forgotten, that trade is actually an instrument for peace. And so by China joining the WTO, it wasn't just an economic move, it was also a move to say that China is now going to be part of the world community. And by being part of the world community, it will contribute to building global peace. So I think there's a strong economic part, which is China's market, helps trade and helps economic growth. China itself used trade to alleviate poverty within China. That has spin-off effects also for other countries. There's also the role of China playing in terms of peace. So there are all these different aspects that one has to consider. China is a member like any other member of the WTO, and China being a very big member of the WTO will be participating and does participate in all of WTO work. And it plays that role, in a way that has been very important to help strengthen the organization. And again, we look to China to continue to support multilateralism and continue to support the WTO.
Just as Accession said, trade is a tool for peace. The integration and globalization of the world economy is the mainstream of today's world economic development. By joining this mainstream, we can fully share the benefits of the international division of labor and keep pace with the world's advanced economy and technology. China's accession to the WTO can help China's economy better integrate into the international economic society, make a better use of international resources, and develop China as a socialist market economy. What the cause of China's negotiations on the restoration of JTT contracting party status and later the accession to the WTO? Let's look back on this journey. Since the submission of application till the formal entry into WTO, the process lasted about 15 years. Generally, can be divided into 4 stages, as the PPT shows. The first stage is from June 1986 to May 1989. On July 10, 1986, the Chinese government formally submitted the application to restoration of JTT contracting party status. The working group on China in JTT held 7 working group meetings for review and drafted a protocol for China to resume its seat in the JTT. The review contents included China's foreign trade regime, tariff and non-tariff measures, trade in services, and foreign capital administration. The second stage is from June 1989 to February 1992. In this phase, negotiations on China's resumption of the JTT were at a standstill, with the United States and the European community skeptical of China's reform and reserving China's status as a developing country. The third stage is from March 1992 to January 1995. In 1992, Deng Xiaoping made his Southern inspection speech and put forward the concept of building a socialist market economy, which injected new vitality into China's resumption of the JTT. At this stage, the review of China's foreign trade system was basically concluded, and substantive negotiations on protocols and tariff began. With great enthusiasm, China signed on to the final text after fully participating in the open Uruguay round negotiations. The fourth stage is from January 1995 to November 2001. In January 1995, WTO replaced JTT. In the same year, China formally applied for accession to the WTO and began the bilateral negotiations with 37 WTO members, one by one. Among them, China took the lead to reach an agreement with New Zealand in August 1997, and finally reached an agreement with Mexico in September 2001. The most complicated and difficult one was the negotiation between China and the United States, which had gone through as many as 25 rounds. The key of China's accession to the WTO lies in the negotiations between China and the United States and the European Union, especially the negotiations between China and the United States. The United States saw China's accession to the WTO would have different impact on different sectors. For example, the agreement on agriculture between China and the United States were welcomed by American farmers. Well, when it came to the textile sector, they would oppose China's accession to the WTO because of its impact on the American market and its damage. In order to balance the domestic interest, the USA kept raising entry prices. Such delaying tactics have imposed huge negotiating costs on China. After long-time negotiations, on November 15, 1999, China and the United States agreed on China's accession to the WTO. On November 11, 2021, Shi Guangsheng, at that time China's Minister of Foreign Trade and Economic Cooperation, signed the protocol on accession to the WTO in Doha. 1 month later, China officially joined the WTO and became its 143rd member. At this point, after 15 years of hard work, China finally opened the door of the WTO. The difficulty of the negotiation and the length of the negotiation process showed that China has made great efforts to safeguard its fundamental interests. At the same time, in order to achieve the success of the negotiations, China has made some policy adjustments which are in line with international norms. In terms of import and export management, China abolished the import regulatory tax in 1992 and the mandatory plan for import and export in 1994. Since then, tariffs have been cut several times, and import quotas and other non-tariff measures have been reduced. After the accession to the WTO, in order to integrate with the WTO policies, China has carried out the following trade policy reforms, for example, opening wider to the outside world, accelerating trade liberalization, and trade and investment facilitation, and so on. There are 5 aspects about the trade policy revolution. Firstly, accelerating the legalization of foreign economic relations and trade. In accordance with the provisions of the WTO and its commitments, China has sorted out more than 2,300 laws and regulations, repealed and revised them, and established and improved the legal system of trade promotion and trade remedy. In addition, a complete system of laws and regulations on intellectual property protection in line with China's national conditions and international practices has been basically formed. Secondly, further reducing tariffs and reducing non-tariff measures. Since January 2005, China has cancelled lots of the income tax, import licenses, and non-tariff measures, such as that specific binding only retained according to the international conventions in order to ensure the safety of life, protect the environment, control products import license management, and some of the tariff quota management of agricultural products and related industrial products. In 2010, China's overall tariff level was reduced to 9.8%, including 15.2% for agricultural products and 8.9% for industrial products. Since 2005, China's tariff bond rate has been maintained at 100%. Thirdly, fully opening up the right to trade. Since July 2004, the right of foreign trade management of enterprises has been changed from the approval system to the registration and the feeding system. All foreign trade operators have the right to import and export all products except state-managed products, forming a diversified pattern of foreign trade operations among state-owned enterprises, foreign-funded enterprises, and private enterprises. In 2010, these 3 categories accounted for 21%, 54%, and 25% of China's total imports and exports, respectively. Fourthly, further opening up the service market of the 160 subsector under the WTO classification of trading services, and the scope of opening up is nearly the level of developed countries. Fifthly, creating a more level playing field in the market. By establishing and improving the fair trade legal system and the law enforcement and supervision mechanisms, China has tried to curb and crack down on unfair trade practices such as infringement, dumping, smuggling, and market disruption, so as to provide a loose, fair, and stable market environment for domestic and foreign enterprises. China firmly opposes trade protectionism in any form, strictly follows WTO regulations, and gives equal treatment to domestic and foreign products, so as to promote fair competition between domestic and foreign enterprises. That's all for this section. Thanks.